My name is Dan Dillingham. This is my Profiles of Greatness speech about J.R.R. Tolkien. In 1911, on a vacation to Switzerland, Tolkien with 12 of his friends went on a hiking expedition through the Swiss Alps. And they went from town to town and crossed over mountain passes, and it was that trip that later on that Tolkien would credit for being the inspiration for The Hobbit, which was a part of the Art of Legendarium, including the Silmarillion, The Hobbit, and Lord of the Rings. Why do I want to talk about Tolkien? For me, I've got a deep appreciation for Tolkien and his work. I have a strong appreciation for his writing style and his linguistics, and also for his moral views. And what do I want you to get out of this? A lot of people, I think, make the mistake when they think about Tolkien of thinking he's a fantasy writer only. And while fantasy is certainly a part of his stories, I think that the overriding theme in all of his stories is the overwhelming historical depth that you get out of the stories, and then the relationships between people and the landscapes and the description that he gives to them. In this speech, I'd like to talk a little bit about Tolkien and his background and his history, and also a little bit about his works, and then three of the things that I think are great about him. One of which is his linguistics and his intellect and his ability to use them for his writing, and then another is two of his moral views. One being his extreme distaste for industrialization, and another being the love that he had for botany and nature, which all three of those things were really prevalent in all of his writing, and they were main themes in all of his writing. So they really played a part. Tolkien was born on January 3rd of 1892 in a town called Bloemfontein. It's in South Africa. And when he was 3, his father, who was a bank manager, died of rheumatic fever. So the mother, Maybelle, moved the family back to England, to Birmingham. And it was at that point that he started to develop a love for nature and the woods and meadows and trees and stuff that were around. And he spent all of his time exploring and learning more about them. He also, his mother taught him to read and write, and by the time he was 4, he could read and write fluently, which I think is pretty surprising for a kid today, much less back then. And then when he was 12, his mother died of acute diabetes, and he had to live in a Catholic boarding school for the rest of his childhood. But that's also where he met his wife, Edith. In 1915, he graduated from Exeter College, and immediately after was commissioned into the British Army as an officer, and there he is right there. A year later, in 1916, he was medically discharged, however, because he contracted trench fever through lice bites, and then it was shortly after he came back from the war that he started his family with Edith. They had 4 kids: John, Michael, Christopher, and Priscilla. Christopher being the most famous of the children, who he's the one who posthumously published a lot of Tolkien's work, including the Silmarillion, and his own work, including the 12-volume History of Middle-earth. Also, immediately when he came back from the war, is when he started work on the work that became the Silmarillion and Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. One of the first stories he wrote was a story called The Story of Beren and Luthien, which he claimed was inspired by his wife and his relationship. And then between the time that he got out of the war and the time that he retired, a lot of his work was published. In 1937, The Hobbit was published. In 1948, Lord of the Rings was published, and then in 1977, the Silmarillion was posthumously published by Christopher Tolkien. In 1959, he retired and went to Bournemouth, England, which was a resort for upper-class British society. And he did that on his wife's request because she wanted to live the last part of her life as a high society hostess. And then she died in 1971 at the age of 82. He died in 1973 at the age of 81. And on their headstones were engraved Beren and Luthien. which was something they always had between them. The three things that I think are really extraordinary about Tolkien are his linguistic skills, which when he was a child, his mother taught him Latin, French, and German. And then while he was in school during the course of his life, he learned 14 more languages fluently, mostly Old English and variations of Icelandic and Norwegian languages. And then he learned another 7 that he could work with. He also, for purposes of the writing that he had, he created 3 languages. The two that he created that were most full were Quenya and Sindarin, which were both Elven languages, and they showed a real gap in history, and really brought out the depth of history in the Silmarillion, with Quenya being the older of the two. Also, one of the things I think that's really impressive about him is his extreme dislike of industrialization, which he never owned a car, and he believed he related industrialization and machines and things like that to evil. And then the third thing was his love of nature and botany, which started from when he was young, and he used all 3 of those things in all of his stories and were themes of all that. And in conclusion, I hope that after hearing some of this, you guys will be interested in maybe reading more about him and reading more of his stories and getting more of a in-depth look at his work. Thank you.